Hey everyone, it's Dr. Angela here. I wanted to talk to you today about the third thing. So I've been doing this series on food industry marketing, or the food industry, how the food industry hooks us. And so I've talked about how they get us to crave, and I've talked about how they manipulate us with convenience. And today I want to talk about children, how they get children hooked. So if you were born in the 1970s or later, I have some really interesting news for you, and that is this. Most likely, you were quietly manipulated by the food industry from the time you were a very small child. And unfortunately, these days, the food industry is working really hard at getting toddlers hooked, quietly manipulating the toddlers as well. So parents are rushed trying to get their kids from one place to another. So the food industry has concocted some very convenient food items for toddlers that are, of course, filled with sugar, designed to get their little brains triggered. So I'm going to talk about that today. I'm going to talk about what you can do to protect the children in your life, whether you are a mother or a grandmother or a father or a grandfather, how you can protect the children in your life. So if you don't already know me, I'm an obesity medicine specialist, so a weight loss doctor. I practice in Olympia, Washington. And I'm also the founder and creator of Journey Beyond Weight Loss, which is an online program designed to help people lose weight and keep it off. So helping people lose weight is basically all I do all day, every day. So I know what I'm talking about. So let's talk about this for a minute. What is it that the food industry does? Think back to when you were a child. What was your favorite food? I can tell you what my favorite foods were. My favorite breakfast was Frosted Flakes. Okay. And I loved Tony the Tiger. There were lots of advertisements on TV for Frosted Flakes. They're great, right? Right here. So what I didn't know is that Frosted Flakes have about 14 grams of added sugar in them in a serving. So in a serving is 1 cup. Who eats a cup of cereal, really? I also loved what was called Hydrox cookies. Now, I got some Oreos. Here's the thing about Hydrox. The cookie part of it in Hydrox is sweeter. So they do have, I don't know if they still have Hydrox available or not, but I was so addicted to these things, I used to give them up every year at Lent time, but Sundays were not part of Lent. And so on Sunday, I would get a package of Hydrox cookies and eat the whole thing on Sundays. So, yeah, right. My other favorite food was chocolate ice cream. So I was pretty much a sugar addict from the day I came out of the womb, really. So let's think about this. So how does the food industry get children interested in their food products? So the first thing that they do is they put sugar in it. And they have to make sure that they get just the right amount of sugar in it. So this is very interesting. So what they do is, and if you're watching and you want to say hi, feel free to say hi. What they do is they do experiments on children. And I read about this in a book by Michael Moss called Salt, Sugar, Fat. Fascinating research. So they take children into a lab, and let's say they're developing a children's pudding. They have to find out what the right amount of sugar is. So children, they know that if they ask a child whether they like pudding or whether they like broccoli, some children are going to tell the adult what they think the adult wants to hear, which is broccoli, right? So they want to bypass all of that. So they give the child a stuffed animal, for example, a big bird, and they tell the child, taste these 2 puddings, and whichever one you like better, give to Big Bird. So the child tastes the 2 puddings, gives the one they like better to Big Bird. This way, they can bypass language, and they can experiment with children as young as like 2 and 3. Okay, so that is fascinating research, right? They find out what is the bliss point of sugar for the child. And I talked about the bliss point in a previous video. It's been a few months now, though. So, but I want to read to you something that one of the food researchers had to say, because the thing is, when you are doing these kinds of experiments, basically when you're feeding children food that has sugar added to it, what you're doing is you're training the brain at a very young age how sweet things should be. So they get this message, their brain gets this message at the age of toddlers, how sweet things should be. And the food researcher said, she said, her name is Julie Minella. She said, I think that anyone who makes a product for a child has to take responsibility, because what they're doing is they're teaching the child the level of sweetness or saltiness that the food should be. So you get raised on this stuff and you become what's called a picky eater. You don't really like food that doesn't have sugar added to it. The idea of eating chicken or broccoli, it just doesn't taste good to you, right? So you're used to sweet stuff. So that's the first thing they do, is they get just the right amount of sweet in there and they start training the children's brain early. The next thing that they have to do is they have to get the child interested. Once they know what the right amount of sugar is, they have to get the child interested in the product. So in other words, they have to market the product to the child. And there are two ways to do this: TV advertising, which works great, and packaging. And most companies do a combination of both. So Michael Moss talks about the cereal aisle in the grocery store, and there are 200 brands of cereal. 200. The three big cereal makers are Kellogg's, Post, and General Mills. And these companies actually spend twice as much money advertising their cereal as they do in the ingredients that make up the cereal. Twice as much money to advertise it. So advertising to children is big business. And you want to understand that. The food industry knows that young children can't tell the difference between what the programming is and what the commercial is. They are not capable of distinguishing that difference. So they have a captive audience. There was a report that came out back in 1979, and I'm looking at my notes here because I can't remember everything. They found in 1979 there were over 7,000 ads, and this is just on 3 networks in 1979, 7,000 television ads for children for sweets and junk food. So this has been going on for decades now. And of course, we have way more TV stations now. A study last year showed that if a child watches 80 minutes of television a day, that's a little bit less than an hour and a half a day, they are going to see, they're going to see 800 ads for junk food every year. 800. That's a lot of ads. And remember how vulnerable these little kids are. So they see it, they want it, then they're in the grocery store with mom or dad. Oh, there's that food. There's the Pop-Tarts. I want these Pop-Tarts. And they'll throw tantrums in the grocery store. And I know, because I have 2 daughters, so they're grown now, but I was the parent victim of that kind of marketing. Okay. By the way, these Pop-Tarts, frosted strawberry milkshake, they have 26 grams of added sugar in them. There is, basically, this is like cake for breakfast. Okay. Or a snack. It's like cake. All right. So here's the part that I find that's really super interesting. And that is, sometimes the food industry will pretend to be on the parent side. So for example, there was, in 2010, there was a marketing campaign for frosted MiniWheats. Let me show you. I got some frosted MiniWheats for you. I went to the grocery store and bought all this stuff. So frosted MiniWheats. And they had this award-winning campaign called Mom's Homeroom. Fascinating. Everything that mom needs to help her kids do well in school, all there on the internet in Mom's Homeroom. And they had this campaign called Full and Focused. And the idea was, you feed your kids frosted MiniWheats before they go to school, they'll be full and focused and they'll do well in school. Okay. The marketing genius behind this said, frosted MiniWheats proved that we were not only talking the talk, we were mom's true partner in helping her kids succeed in school. Now they're still doing this. On the back of frosted MiniWheats, if you buy it, you can take a picture of the receipt, send it in, and then you can get books, free Bernstein Bears books. Like, what mother doesn't want her children reading Bernstein Bears? They're so sweet, right? So they're still on mom's side. What they don't tell you is that this is going to keep your kid anything but full and focused. Your kid is going to be on a sugar high. It has 12 grams of added sugar per serving, which is 25 of the little biscuits. Okay, so the kid's going to be sort of hyper and strung out and unable to focus if they're eating this for breakfast. So this is just the stuff they do, guys. So here's another interesting children's product. It's called Lunchables. Lunchables. Have you seen these? Here, put it this way. Yeah, Lunchables. So this was developed in the late 1980s by Oscar Mayer, when bologna sales started flagging, and people were not eating high fat. With the low fat message had gotten out, bologna was considered to be high fat food, so people weren't buying it anymore. So bologna is a lunch food. So the food industry, so Oscar Mayer had to figure out how to sell more bologna, and their focus groups had shown that mothers were really, really harried every morning trying to get their kids out the door. Like, they're trying to get breakfast, they're trying to get the shoes tied, kids dressed, out the door. And trying to make lunch was just one more task. And so they thought they would help moms out by making just a little lunch package, right, with bologna slices. And it took them a while to figure out what to put with the bologna slices, but they ended up putting crackers with it and cheese with it. And the original Lunchables, it looked like a package tied up in a bow, really. And it was as if mother was handing the child a present on the way out the door. So, and kids loved it. These things flew off the shelves. Moms loved it. It was convenient. Kids loved it. Of course, there's nothing that is nutritionally sound in these things. But the kids really liked it because they get to feel empowered, because as they are assembling their lunch, they get to play with their food. They get to assemble the lunch. They get to decide how much of this they want and all of that. The kids just absolutely loved it. Over time, they developed cheesy pizza Lunchables. They developed taco Lunchables. They developed all kinds of different flavors. And then they realized that if you really want to sell something, all you got to do is add a little sugar to it. So now they put Airheads with it and Capri Suns. So add a little sugar to it. Now these things have a total of 25 grams of added sugar in this. Okay. So that's Lunchables. So I've been talking about the past and what's been going on. This stuff is still going on nowadays. The food industry is really targeting the toddler market with, all of these different toddler milks and toddler supplements. For example, organic Sunny Days snack bars. These are made for toddlers with organic nutrients. This has 5 grams of added sugar for a toddler. We've got these things. You can just throw a bag of this back to your kid. Fruit Loops Jumbo Snacks. Okay. How about this? Gerber Puffs. These things are no more nutritious than Cheetos, really. Not so good. And then when I talk about older children, they'll put cartoon characters or movie characters, superheroes, that sort of thing. This is this is Wonder Woman. So it's an advertisement for a movie premiere. So food characters, and that sort of thing on packages. So there's all kinds of these little marketing tactics that, and I forgot to show you this one here. This is Chobani. So Greek yogurt is supposed to be healthy, but this is chocolate chip cookie dunk. And so they put cookies in there that you can dunk into the yogurt. Kids love this. I can't even read how much sugar is in this because they have hidden it in here somewhere. There's no way to know how much sugar is in this. So what is happening to our children because of this? This is the part that you really want to understand. The recent statistics on childhood obesity. Now, I'm reading you obesity statistics, but what you need to understand is that there are also children who fall into the overweight category. So what I'm telling you, you basically want to just double. 18.4% of America's 6 to 11-year-olds have obesity. and 20.6% of America's 12 to 19-year-olds have obesity. So that's 1 in 5 high school students have obesity. 1 in 4 high school students are pre-diabetic or diabetic. We're screening 10-year-olds for adult onset diabetes now, 10-year-olds, okay? So the interesting thing about adult onset diabetes is, we've been dealing with adults with diabetes for years. I actually just diagnosed a case of diabetes earlier yesterday, I think it was. And this poor gal was 41 years old. She had no idea she had diabetes. And, when I realized what the food industry is doing to us, it's hard not to just start throwing charts across the room sometimes. It just is. It's so incorrigible. What we know is that it costs, in direct medical care costs for children with obesity, $14 billion a year that we spend in this country. 14, that's billion with a B, okay? Now, I don't know if the food industry is even making that much money. Maybe their gross sales are 14 billion, but the food products they are providing for children are horrible, okay? So what can you do? Are you concerned about our children's future? I sure am. I hope I have convinced you to be concerned too. What can you do for the child in your life? I'm going to give you top 5 things that you can do, 5 tips, okay? First thing, limit children's exposure to advertising. I didn't even really talk about fast food advertising. I'm just talking about, but that's a piece of it too. Limit your children's exposure, which means limit their exposure to television networks that have advertising. So go to the networks that don't have advertising. Cook and eat, this is tip number 2, cook and eat real unprocessed foods. And this is a big ask. I totally get it. Like, cooking food takes a little extra time. The interesting thing about that is once you get used to it, it's not that big of a deal. So I want you to imagine chopping up carrots and celery and bagging that so that you've got that handy for snacks instead of grabbing bags of fruit snacks. Okay, so that's tip number 2. Tip number 3 is avoid giving kids sugary drinks. That is another piece, those Capri Suns, the Gatorades, the sodas that we give our children. Huge, huge, huge in terms of causing obesity and metabolic syndrome and diabetes among our children. Water's great. Ice water is just fine. And if you stick a little strawberry or raspberry in it, it feels like a treat. Okay, so kids like that stuff. Tip number 4, teach kids that it's important to nourish their bodies with good whole foods that are going to give them the stamina and the energy and the focus that they need, right? Sugar gives you a sugar high, but then you crash. So teach them that, okay? Teach them. We want to have lasting energy. We don't want to have a sugar high and then a crash. Tip number 5, think about non-food rewards for kids. If they've got good behavior, if their behavior is good, or if they've done a great piano recital or they've won a baseball game or something like that, don't take them out for ice cream. Think about a non-food reward. Maybe it would be a toy, or maybe it would be a sleepover, or maybe it would be a trip to an amusement park, something like that, some sort of non-food reward, or even just a star on a chart. Kids love that. I love that. I love getting stars on charts. So reward yourself and your children, the children in your life, in other ways besides food. Okay, so those are my 5 tips. Remember, this is serious. This is really causing horrible quality of life for our children. And then as they grow up, their taste buds have gotten so addicted to sugar by this time. So I hope I've given you some food for thought. I just want you to realize how the food industry is working really hard to quietly manipulate our children. And I hope that you've learned something today. Remember, the food industry works very hard to get us to crave their food. It works hard at getting us, what's the word I want? Tantalizing us with convenience and getting children addicted at a very young age. So that is the end of my series. If you want more information about, if you're struggling with sugar yourself and you want more information about this, if you're watching this on YouTube, go to my Facebook group called Sugar and Flour Busters Society and join that. And if you would like help getting off sugar yourself, I've got a plan for you. It's called the Sugar Detox Plan, and I put a link in the description so that you can download that link. Okay. If you have any comments, be sure to put them in. I'd love to hear your comments on this. If you've noticed what sugar has done for children, to children, and if you have any ideas for any non-food rewards for children, I would love to hear what you have up your sleeve. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.